Thank you, Bruce. So welcome to Free School for Farm Workers, everyone. It's really great to be back after a summer hiatus. And today's session is on climate grief. So some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. We have closed captioning enabled, so you can access that through your Zoom platform. Just click on More and then Captions. And in addition to Spanish interpretation, we also have the chat being translated into Spanish by Jeanette Ramirez. So very quickly, my co-organizer and I want to introduce ourselves. I'm Anita. I work at Not Our Farm. Not Our Farm's a nonprofit farm worker storytelling and power building project. Our work is national, and I'm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And I'm Sarah Janes Ugaretz. I'm based in Wisconsin, where I work with UW Extension and with Fair Share CSA Coalition, doing a lot of work in creating and supporting positive and safe labor experiences. And I'm excited to be here with you all tonight.
So before we begin, I want to share a little bit about Free School for Farm Workers. So for those of you who are new to this space, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, we're really glad that you're back. So Free School is a series that we began last year, and it's inspired by the power of community education, specifically by anarchist free schools that are located all over the world. Free school is a direct reaction to the knowledge hoarding that we so often see and experience as workers on farms. And we know that among us there is so much knowledge and wisdom and skill. So we wanted to create a space where we can share information among each other and learn and create connections with each other as farm workers. So we try very, very hard to protect this space, and our free school sessions are reserved for farm workers only and those who work directly with farm workers. Because of the power dynamics that we know exist on farms, this is not a space for traditional farm owners and operators. You can leave now. And we know that resources exist out in the world for them already. So all of our free school teach-in topics come from needs and requests posed by farm workers like yourselves. So if there's a topic or question that you want to Skillshare on or host a future teach-in about, please let us know. Sarah's going to drop a link to a submission form, and you can put your ideas in there. Okay, so today's session, Climate Grief, is one that we've received many, many requests for. And I've had so many conversations with fellow farmers about it. Every year, we're experiencing changes in weather patterns, later frost dates, earlier springs, hail in the summer, extreme heat, drought, flooding, fires, bugs we've never seen before. It's unsettling and scary and deeply sad. Here in Albuquerque, where I've been farming for the last 8 years, I've noticed weather changes even in that brief amount of time. Our monsoon season has gotten much shorter. When I first moved here, there was a solid 3 weeks, I'd say, in July and early August, where it would rain consistently, heavily every afternoon. It was something you could count on to water your fall plantings in. I remember working on a farm out here, and at the end of July, we kept having to wait for the rain to stop to get in the field with our tractors to do field prep. And that's not the case anymore. The Rio Grande River here, that many farmers use to flood irrigate their fields, has gone dry every year for the past 3 years now. As farm workers, we know these changes deeply. We're often seeing them first, and we feel them in our bodies. For myself, I'll say it's scary to think about this job, a job that I've been working at for the past 15 years, learning this skill, understanding the rhythm of the seasons, the growth cycles of the plants. And sometimes I wonder, how long will I be able to do this with all these changes that are happening? What does it mean for the skill of farming and knowledge of the land and ecosystems where I live if everything is changing? Luckily for me, our guide today, is based here in Albuquerque where I live. And last fall, I had the opportunity to attend an in-person climate grief workshop that they hosted. And I got to sit in community with all of these questions and all of the sadness and concern that I was feeling. And I came out feeling really renewed and supported in a way that I hadn't felt before. So I'm really, really happy that she's here with us today. And my hope is that you all will feel some relief and support too. So about Mai is a writer, facilitator, and grief doula. Mai facilitates community offerings around writing and processing grief and teaches how the natural world can support us through loss, death, and change. Mai lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico with her dog, Story. So Mai has so much planned for us all today, so I want to leave it at that for now and get to it. but I'm going to pass it to Sarah very quickly for one exciting announcement.
If you have joined us for free school in the past, you know that we have adopted this practice of raffling off resources that the speakers and facilitators that have joined us for that session have recommended. So thanks to Mai for suggesting that we focus on these two books for our raffle for this session. So during the break, we're going to randomly select one person who has joined us tonight, and that person will receive both of these books, Love Letter Earth and The Mushroom at the End of the World. We'll send those your way. And then, because we really value the feedback and ideas that you share through our session evaluations, which I'm going to pop in the chat right now, we'll pick a second winner randomly from folks who participate and fill out that evaluation as well. So if you plan to do that, make sure you fill that out by tomorrow morning, and then we'll pick another person and reach out to let you know who you are. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to turn it back over to Maya now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's really good to be in this space. I just want to first say thank you so much to Anita for inviting me to facilitate, to both Anita and Sarah for coordinating the space. Thank you so much to Jeanette and Bruje for the translation and interpretation and making this space accessible in Spanish. Anita shared a little bit about me, but I just wanted to share a little bit more so you'll have some context to where I'm calling from, a little bit about me, what's in my heart as I share this work with you all. As Anita shared, I'm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I live and am calling in from just below the Sandia Mountains, where I live with my dog Story, who is my animal companion and helps make up the environment that I call home. I come to this work with the lineage of my family and my ancestors. And as I name my environment and bring my ancestors into this space, I invite you to think about those who make up your ecosystem as well, both in the geographic place that you are arriving from in this moment and beyond, across time, dimension, and space. Because all of that makes up our environment and gives us resource when we think about our relationship to loss, death, and change, especially as it relates to the climate and environment and ecosystems we are a part of. My mother's from central Mexico, and my father is from both northern and southern Vietnam, and arrived in the United States in the 70s due to different forms of forced migration. And so when I think about the experiences, my lived experiences with wildfires and drought, having chronic illness and figuring out how to live in a climate where the air is getting harder to breathe, and also the kind of climate changes and environmental changes due to war, for example, that my ancestors have lived through. I think about the ways that I already am resourced, whether I am conscious of it or not, to move through environmental changes. And so wanted to just offer a little bit about my background as an invitation to think about your own background and the resource and experience that might be embedded within that. So just a little bit about our flow today. So the workshop today is going to offer a process for moving through any form of grief, but today it'll be climate grief. Feel free to take what resonates and leave the rest. And yeah, also just wanted to take a moment to welcome you all and acknowledge you all. Thank you so much for being here. It's really brave to come to a space that's talking about grief, let alone climate grief. It's really brave to make space within ourselves to touch things that feel hard and big. And so I really just want to honor each and every one of you for being here and for doing this tending of grief at this time, especially as it relates to the ways that our environments are changing. I also wanted to just offer gratitude to you all as farm workers. Thank you so much for the food that you grow. I want to just acknowledge and affirm your existing relationship to the land that you work on, and just the way that you all as farm workers have a very deep relationship to the earth. You all know how to grow and protect life and work with change. And I am deeply honored and humbled to be here with you all, to learn with you, to hear some of your experiences around what you're witnessing and experiencing. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and thank you for the work that you do. One thing I like to do to open a space is to offer a grounding that allows us to all enter the space together. I know we're all coming from different geographies, different kinds of days, and so especially because of what we're going to be feeling into and reflecting on, I want to just give us an opportunity to arrive together. And so I'm going to lead us through a grounding. I'll use some light visualization, some light breath work. Feel free to make adaptations as you need to. Um, and yeah, feel free to be on or off camera also, depending on what feels comfortable for you. So I like to offer this grounding also so that we can arrive in the space together and also consciously connect to the environment that we're standing upon, sitting upon, lying upon, the environment that we're a part of and bringing into this call, because that's the environment that we are in relationship with at this moment. Okay, so I invite you to just get comfortable, whatever comfortable looks like in this moment. So if you feel like you want to lie down or prop up yourself with a pillow, just take a moment to notice if there's anything your body needs to more comfortably be supported by the ground or the chair or the bed, wherever you find yourself. And allowing ourselves to find whatever comfort level we're able to access given the state of our body minds allows us to be a little bit closer to a space of rest and allows us to be a little bit closer to the more subtle energies and rhythms as they move through our being and our bodies, including that of our heart. I invite you to just use the next few breaths to call all of your energy and attention back into your own being and space. Calling all and any energy and attention you might have left in other places, with other people, in the past, or in the future. And just allowing yourself to fill back up with your own energy and attention. Allowing yourself to take up your own space. Filling back up with each breath. And allowing each inhale, as it naturally does, to just release what no longer is yours or serves you, what was never yours to begin with, anything you're carrying that doesn't need to be here in this space today. And a lot of the work that we'll be doing today is about being in relationship with the earth. Whether you think about the earth as the land that you live or work upon, maybe it's a specific tree, maybe the planet as a whole. And so for our grounding, we're going to just turn our attention to the ground below us, to the earth, to the planet that we live with, as it is right below where we are. I invite you to just acknowledge the ground below and ask the earth below if the earth would be so kind as to allow you to send roots deep down into the ground, at least as tall as you are. And just sense or visualize or set the intention of big, strong roots extending from your feet all the way down into the earth, feeling their way down through the dirt and the soil, feeling their way past the insects and the worms, feeling around other tree roots and plant roots, and connecting down into the soil. I invite you to send any gratitude you have for this earth, for this ground down into the earth below through your roots. And allow anything to come back up through your roots into your heart center. Maybe some extra support or nourishment, anything you might be needing from your connection to the ground below. And then I invite you to turn your attention to the sky above you, acknowledging the sun, the clouds, if there are clouds, acknowledging these ancient elements and beings that keep us alive, that we could not exist without. And in our acknowledgement, sending gratitude to these elements. And allow yourself to receive anything that gets sent back and receive it into your heart space. I invite you to take a few more breaths at your own pace to just breathe into this connection so that as we move through today's workshop, we're connected to the environment that we're a part of, that we're moving through grief in a way that is in relationship. So we both have support from our environment and are also accountable to our environment through this relationship and connection. I invite you to bring your palms together, rub them together to create some warmth, and then bring them to your heart space. To bring some warmth, remind yourself of your own self-connection, your own self-presence. And then when you feel ready, I invite you to come back into the space and the screen. Okay, thank you all. So I'm going to share some guiding practices. If Sarah, you'd be so kind as to share the slides. And these guiding practices and reminders will help us, will guide us, are an invitation for how to be in this space together with yourself, with the group, with the earth, and with grief. So some guiding practices. I invite you to honor your capacity every day, every moment. We have a different capacity to be present in our bodies, to touch difficult emotions, to participate in certain ways. And so I invite you to honor your capacity, whatever that looks like today. So feel free to, really be guided by whatever capacity you have to be in this space. And that connects me to the second one. Just take care of yourself and others. Feel free to be on or off camera. Get up and stretch as needed, lie down, get water when you need to. Really feel free to honor whatever it is you need to be in this space. And also, when we're taking care of others, one way that might look is by just being mindful of what we're sharing when we share, offering content notes for specific information that might be difficult for others. So that might be one way we take care of others in this space. Another guiding practice I want to offer, which I shared a little bit earlier, is just to shift and adapt prompts and invitations as needed. Really be guided by what feels good for you. Everything I offer is really just an invitation. And so take what resonates and leave the rest. So that's for anything I share. We all come from different lineages and experiences and cultural backgrounds, and I will do my best to create a bridge to each and every one of you to share what I have to share, and also invite you to really take what resonates and what works for you. And if something doesn't, like, no worries, just let it go or keep it in your pocket for a later date. And I wanted to just offer some reminders um, about how to be in this space, given that we'll be working with grief. So one thing I really want to remind and affirm is that this is a practice space. If if you're feeling like pressure to like get it quote unquote right, or to know or be a certain way, just want to really affirm that this is a practice space. There is no right or wrong. It is okay to change your mind, to make mistakes, to choose a different direction. This is really a space for all of us to practice how we want to be with grief and in community and with care for ourselves and others. Another reminder is all grief is valid. We're going to be spending some time thinking about what comes up for us when we think about climate grief. And there's nothing that is like invalid. Like, everything is totally welcome. Everything is valid. There's no grief that is quote unquote too small or too big. Everything is welcome here. Everything is valid. And the last is that grief is a process, and this space is a process. We have about 75 minutes together in this space. There's no way we're going to come to all of the answers or resolution that we might be wanting, needing, or expecting. And so acknowledging that grief is a process is an invitation to just accept incompletion and to allow ourselves to be wherever we are, both in this moment and at the end of this workshop. So thank you, Sarah. That's it for the slides for now. So a couple more things before I invite us into doing some writing and reflecting together. So we're just quickly around the overview of today. So we're going to be doing some reflecting about the changes that we're all witnessing. We're going to be doing some writing about those changes. We'll take a break. We'll come back and hear from a few people. And then we will talk about different practices for releasing grief. And then we'll close, and then I'll turn it over back to Anita. So that's just a little bit of what to expect for today. Another thing I wanted to mention is you all were invited through the registration form to bring a part from the earth or the natural world to be with you in this workshop, whether that was a rock or a seed or a plant. If you have that around with you, I just invite you to turn to it, hold it as you need to. Whatever the item or whatever the part of the earth is that you have with you in this space, it is made up of the same compounds, minerals that we are made up of. We might have a different shape, we might look different, but we are made of the same material. And so I invite you to turn to this part of the earth as a way to remember that we are connected to elements and energies in the earth, in the universe, that are much bigger than us, and we are being held by elements and energies that are much bigger than us all the time. And also that we are connected, and we are not alone as we approach things like climate grief, even though it can feel really big and scary and isolating. So that's one way for you to just turn to the part of the earth that you brought with you today. Okay, so I'm going to move us into witnessing grief. So I'm going to ask Sarah if you could put the solastalgia slide up again. And that'll be the last slide that we use. So before we move into some writing or reflection, I wanted to offer a definition of, I use the language climate grief. A more broad term is solastalgia. And so I'll be just reading the definition of solastalgia and offering it in case it's helpful to have a definition to orient around or ground into. So solastalgia is a form of emotional or existential distress caused by negatively perceived environmental change. This includes the lived experience of negatively perceived change in the present, as well as worry or concern about what may happen in the future. Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to be doing some writing and reflecting. And so for this first invitation, I want you to take a moment and just think about what are the environmental changes that you are witnessing. And this is something you can just reflect with, take notes as things come up. But yeah, I want you to think about the environmental changes, however you feel, however you define environment. It could be the city you live in, it could be the land that you tend, it could be the planet, whatever feels most potent and present. It could be all of those. And just take a moment to jot what comes up. What are the environmental changes that you are witnessing and seeing? What are you feeling, experiencing, or sensing in your day-to-day lives? And then what environmental changes are you worried or concerned about in the future? So I'm going to drop that prompt in the chat in case it's helpful to have a visual. And again, there's no right or wrong. Whatever comes up is totally welcome and allowed to be here. We'll have a couple of minutes here for you to reflect and take notes. You're still reflecting, continue to take notes and write. If you feel complete and want to drop anything that came up in the chat, you're welcome to drop something in the chat if there's anything you want to share. Okay. Thank you for folks writing things in the chat. Wherever you are, if you would be so kind as to wrap up your last thought, knowing that this can be a list that you return to. Some of the things that are coming up in the chat include heat, not just heat, but the way that the intensity of the sun impacts the skin, dysregulated rivers and waters, drought, floods, fog, less fog, fewer insects, wildfire smoke, air quality, air quality. Thank you all. microplastics, worrying about extinction, chronic illness and impacts on chronic illness, housing and habitat, the impact of drought on trees. So I'm sure this is just a few of the things that are coming up in this space. And I'm sure there's a lot that hasn't been shared as well. We're going to we're going to take some time to just dive a little bit deeper into one of the things that came up on your list. So I invite you to pick one of the issues or changes that came up on your list that feels that you feel called to work with today, knowing that the prompts that I offer, you can always work with another change at another time. So I invite you to just pick one change that you feel called to work with today to do some deeper writing with. And I'm going to share the prompts. You're going to have, I'm going to share 2 prompts, and you can use whichever prompt you feel most called to use. So the first prompt is based on the change that you selected or that you feel called to work with. The invitation is to write a letter to Earth. And Earth, again, could be Earth as a planet. It could be the specific land that you tend to live upon or work with. It could be a specific tree or river that you feel called to, whatever resonates most with you. But the invitation for the first prompt is to write a letter to Earth about this change. What do you want to express to Earth about your grief around this change or around this change itself? What are the thoughts, feelings, experiences, stories, or questions that you want to share with the Earth? So that's one prompt that you can work with. The other option, and I will put it in the chat as well. The other option is to have the writing prompt would be for you to write a letter from the Earth to you about this change. So that prompt is imagining what the Earth, and again, the land, river, tree, whatever resonates with you, would have to say to you about this change. What is the Earth's perspective of this change? What does the Earth want to share with you? What are the Earth's stories and wisdom about this change? So I'll write that one in the prompt, or I'll write that prompt in the chat as well. So just take a moment if you haven't decided yet to there's no right or wrong answer. Again, you can work with these prompts later, but just choose one that feels most, that just calls to you today. And we're going to have 10 minutes to work on this writing. For this writing practice, I invite you to, if you'd like to do a traditional free write where you're just writing nonstop, repeating if you don't know what to say, that's one way to approach this prompt. You can also just reflect on this prompt if you just want to lay and let it sit in your heart and see what comes up. That's another way of approaching this prompt. You don't have to write. You could draw, anything in between. These are just invitations to reflect on the change that you want to go deeper with, and how to engage with it through either writing a letter to the Earth about this change or writing a letter from the Earth to you about this change. Does anyone have any questions about the process before I start the timer? Okay, great. So I'm going to start the timer and we'll let you all know when the timer has gone off, and we'll have 10 minutes starting now. In these last 2 minutes, just wanted to offer an invitation to connect with your heart space, heart center. Notice anything that might be there, and right from that place, anything else that needs to be shared still. Slowly wrap up your last sentence or thought, knowing that this is writing you can return to. And so before we move into a break, I want to just invite us all to take a few breaths. Any grief came up for you during that writing, I invite you to just use your breath to breathe into it, or any place on your body that is just asking for a little bit of attention or support. And if nothing is calling to you, I invite you to just breathe into your heart space or your belly. And then just send that grief or anything else that came up down through your feet into your roots, into the roots that we sent down into the earth at the beginning of this workshop. I invite you to wiggle your shoulders or any other part of your body that feels good to wiggle to just help in the process of releasing. Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break. If you want to keep writing, you can keep writing, but really use this time to take care of yourself in whatever way that you need, unless Anithan's there have other instructions.
That's all. Yep. We'll see y'all back here in 5 minutes. All right, everybody, welcome back from a very quick break, but hopefully you were able to get up and move around or do whatever you needed to do. We are just popping in here to share that we've selected randomly the first person who's going to receive both of these books, and that person is Taylor Hartson. So thanks so much for being here, Taylor. And if you, I'll private message you and try to get the info we need. And then just a prompt to spend a little bit of time completing that evaluation, and we'll choose the second winner overnight in the morning. All right. I'm going to hand it back over to Mai.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, so we're going to have some time for people to share off mute or in the chat. Both are totally great ways of sharing. Sharing is totally optional, and participating by just listening is also a really great way of being in this space. But I did want to leave room in case anyone wanted to share a piece of what they wrote, maybe a few lines, or just a reflection that they had. If you could also share the change that you were working with, that would be great. We have about 10 minutes just to open the floor to hear from people around like what came up for them in the writing exercise.
I guess I can step in and share. Hi. Hi, I'm Lisa Ann, and I wrote a letter to the earth. And one of the things that I reflected on, the particular, like very pervasive problem where I am rooted in the Midwest, in Iowa, eastern side of the state, land between two rivers, is water quality. And we have really terrible toxic water quality. And it's like people are just starting to realize and I mean, the media is talking about it more. And there was a period of time this summer where um, residents in one of the major cities in this state were unable to water their lawns because the water treatment facility could not keep up with the amount of nitrates that were in the water. So they were having a hard time cleaning the water to make it suitable. Uh, so I found myself really kind of wanting to like reassure the earth that I'm looking out for them, for it, for her. And yeah, just kind of vacillated back and forth on um kind of the problem as I see it, and the disconnection that I think is ultimately the problem, and how I wanted to reassure myself and the earth that we'll get it right eventually, because she's talking to us, and I think a lot of people are listening and paying attention. So
Thank you. I'm going to read the share in the chat from LA. I apologize if I'm not saying your name correctly. To the earth, I try to imagine a place before my time in the industrial world of settler colonialism, a place where dry flower seeds and grasses moved with the wind in a rhythm aligned with you. I try to imagine this where the sounds of cars, sirens, airplanes, and leaf blowers become overwhelming. I can hear the wind outside now, and I am reminded that your presence is immortal and that you will forever exist long after this moment. The grass and flowers are singing, and I am reminded that I am a part of you and that we all will live on and transform as you continue to spin. Thank you. I'm curious if anyone wrote a letter from the earth to themselves, and if so, if you would feel comfortable sharing anything that came up for you in that letter.
I wrote from the earth to myself, and the issue or change, not necessarily issue, well, it is one, but the change that I talked about was how dry the soil has been and how things that we've been harvesting are just like clearly dehydrated and cracking, even as they come out of the soil, and how the soil itself is becoming like hydrophobic to the water that we're offering. Um, and I found myself just like welcoming in myself as I started talking about the earth and encouraging to come sit and to feel and kind of started talking about the extraction and how easily the metaphors of the earth and like as open veins and like being drained and how there is the room to replenish but that there must be um, well, I ended it by saying, press your nails into me and feel the life, now go, to kind of like encourage that urgency and action and that like there's still more to give, but it is not this never-ending resource if we're not doing some level of reciprocity too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I have a couple more minutes in case anyone wants to share. It's an optional invitation, but if anyone is feeling like called to express something that they wrote in this space, I just want to give room for you to honor that call. And also just appreciations for people who have shared and for everyone for receiving those shares. So I'll read this one that came in through the chat. Melissa. I apologize again if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Dear Earth, as I've grown, wait, there's something blocking the word.
It says, as I've grown, I've felt this.
I felt, thank you. There was like a little emoji thing that I couldn't remove. Thank you so much, Sarah. Dear Earth, as I've grown, I've felt the storm gathering within you. The thunderstorms and soaking rains of my childhood have given way to heat, scorching fire, and flood. You show me how you have been hurting. I sink my hands into the heart of you, hoping to heal. I have heard your call and I have come to the open fields. My experience of the exercise, I definitely don't give myself the space to feel sad about climate change on an everyday basis. I think in part because the scale of it feels overwhelming. I noticed during the exercise that it gave me space to feel some of those feelings, which I appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing how the exercise felt. And I definitely know you're not alone in that experience of just it feeling really overwhelming to give your space to feel into some of these changes. I'm going to move us into thinking about releasing grief. But before I do that, I wanted to just appreciate everyone for sharing and for engaging with these prompts in the way that you did, however you did them. They are there for you to continue working with. You can call upon the process of like reflecting and then writing through one of these prompts at any time. If you did one of the prompts, I invite you to try the other prompt another time because it does feel really different. And one of the reasons I wanted to offer writing a letter from the earth to you about this change, about the change that you wanted to work with, is humans have our own experiences and our own like judgments and perspectives around loss and change and death. And it can be helpful to decenter our own experience and instead recenter uh, the the perspective of the earth that we live upon to just add some perspective and add some wisdom. And so writing from the earth to us can help us just have a different perspective that we might not normally gravitate towards. And often I've found when I'm writing from the earth to me, a lot of wisdom that I wouldn't have been able to um, pull from my brain or somewhere else, like is able to come through. And it reminds me that I am not only not the center, I am not alone, but I am a part of a whole. And as a whole, we are moving through this together. And so, yeah, just wanted to offer that context around the prompts and invitation for you to continue working with them, especially the the prompt from writing from the earth to you. So, with that, with what was shared around like climate grief, especially being something that can be really hard to feel on an everyday basis because it feels like so big. I wanted to offer a practice or practices for releasing grief throughout this workshop. I also just want to name the ways that we have done that together so far of witnessing as a process for releasing grief are by consciously connecting to the earth. So in the beginning of the workshop, we did some grounding and that really was just like turning our attention in a conscious, intentional way to the ground that we're a part of, to the trees, to the insects, and establishing that connection in our attention, in our mind, in our heart, and our bodies can be a way that we can just be held in whatever it is that we're moving through when grief is there or when it's not. So that's one way that we can engage with our relationship to the earth as a way to support us through climate grief. Another one is just doing some personal reflection. What are we feeling? Like, what are we experiencing, especially when it comes to day-to-day changes? They can feel both so like abnormal, like our bodies and nervous systems probably feel like, oh my gosh, this is so not okay. And then there's the everyday nature of it, and another part of us just kind of trying to get through the day. And so making time to just actually make space for what we actually are experiencing on a day-to-day basis can give us the room to just validate our own experiences, which can be so important when it comes to grief. Just that witnessing allows whatever it is to actually start to move. Another practice was by writing. Writing helps take things out of our bodies and helps us to have a different perspective by seeing it on a page or in an image that we draw. If you do voice notes, that's another way of externalizing outside of our bodies. And then we also connected with each other. We shared and listened, and that can be a really great way to not feel so alone. And turn to our human relationships to just like break that fourth wall and acknowledge that like, oh, we are experiencing this, and recognize that yeah, we are not alone, and that we have people that we can turn to. And I wanted to also offer, which we'll do some reflection around right now, that we can also release our grief through action and gift. And I want to invite you all to think about the ways that you, and I'm going to put this in the chat. Thank you for your patience. So this is the invitation. So I invite you all to think of ways that you give to or work with the earth in ways that are supportive, nourishing, protective of the earth, but also that restore the dignity and sovereignty of the earth. So, what are ways that you work with the earth or give back to the earth that are in relationship with the earth, in ways that honor the earth's sovereignty and that nourish and support the earth? So, if you want to just think about some examples, some practices that you already have, this could be in your farming, it could be any personal or ancestral practices that you use of turning towards the earth and giving back to the earth. So just take a moment and jot down some practices that come up. And these can be things that you already do or want to do. And it's totally okay and great to think outside the box. This also includes things like direct action, signing petitions, organizing advocacy, all sorts of things. And it can be really simple, like watering a tree, putting water out for birds and animals. And thank you. Yeah, if people want to start dropping ideas into the chat, that's great. And that can help other people come up with ideas too. So leaving birds on locally native plants for the leaving seeds on locally native plants for the birdies, clean up petals, prayers along riverbanks, seed bomb and seed saving, cover crop composting, sending silent thank yous to the land, refraining from plastics. Yes, these are all really beautiful. I invite you to continue making your list, continue to drop things in the chat. And as people are sharing, I wanted to just share something that an elder of mine said recently, and that I think is important to think about when we're thinking about taking action on behalf of the earth or the climate or the planet. And one thing she had said was, when we put a dam in a river, we are enslaving that river. And I know many of us are in touch with the ways, with like the ways that humans are with the planet, that are creating a lot of chaos and imbalance and suffering. And a lot of that comes from humans believing that we know what is best and not listening to the whole that we are a part of and making those decisions. So when we're thinking about taking action on behalf of the earth, it always needs to include the earth. And it needs to be in partnership and relationship with the earth and the land that we are a part of. And so I really appreciate all of these examples that people are sharing, because I feel really in line with that. And so just wanted to offer that for continued ways of thinking. We don't always have to come up with the action, like we can also turn to the earth and ask the earth to guide us. So I just wanted to offer that. So before we move to a closing grounding, I'd love for you to all to think about one thing that, oh, allow me to start over. I forgot to say, so when we're thinking about releasing grief, we can release grief through action. So when we're thinking about these practices that we either already do or want to be doing with the earth and the environment, we can move through those practices with the intention of being in conversation with the environment and also releasing grief. So making time to release grief into the earth and be in conversation with the earth around grief when we're watering or when we're putting seeds out. And so that just allows us to, when we release grief, we're allowed to stay more present with ourselves and to move in a more steady way so that we can continue to be in service and continue to move through our daily lives in a good way. And so part of why we're thinking about practices is we're thinking about using these practices as a way to release grief. And so I want to invite you all to think about one practice that you really resonate with, that someone shared or that you came up with, that you might want to do sometime soon, as a way to practice releasing grief to the earth. Maybe you want to read something that you wrote today in that practice. So there's lots of ways that you can combine those two. But I invite you to think about something that you might want to do soon, as a practice of releasing grief. And these tools that we did today are ones that we can always turn to. I know this, if it's something that's coming up every day for you, these are practices you can turn to every day, every week, every month, whenever you feel called. So I'm going to move us through a closing grounding. We've moved through a lot. We've been on the internet for a while. So I'm going to just invite us to get comfortable again, as a way to just come back to ourselves once again and just reground into our connection to the earth before we close, before I turn it back to Anita. So I invite you to just get comfortable in your body, whatever that looks like in this moment. And if staying still feels hard, you can totally move around through this grounding. You can wiggle, stretch, breathe deeply, as deep as you're able to. I just want to invite you to take notice of where you're at. Where is your mind? Where are your emotions? How is your spirit? How is your physical body? And just notice without judgment. And just take note if there's any care that you might need after we wrap up. If it's a nap or a snack or a hug from a loved one or animal companion. And I again want you to, or invite you to turn your attention again to the ground below and ask once again of the earth if the earth would be so kind as to receive your roots. And then sense or visualize just set the intention, spreading down, roots, growing down through the soil, connecting with the roots of trees and plants. Just once again anchoring down into your connection to the earth below. And then taking the next couple of breaths to just release and allow movement of anything that has yet to be released, that hasn't been released yet, that is ready to move, and sending it down through your roots into the earth. Trusting that every exhale is supporting you to release, and that every inhale is filling every cell of your body with new energy, with new life, with recharge and renewal. And again, sending any gratitude you have for the earth down through your roots. Allowing energy from the earth to come back up into your heart center. And then again, turning your attention to the sky, the way that the light has changed in the last hour, to the moon and the stars and the air, sending gratitude and allowing any energy from these elemental beings to come back down into your heart center. Taking a few breaths to welcome in the earth and the sky. Allowing that to align you and fill any places that may have released energy today. I invite you to bring your hands or palms together, rub them together to bring some warmth, and then to place them over your heart space and any other places that sometimes feel sensitive or that need some extra love and care right now. It could be your eyes, or your belly, your knees. And before we come back, I invite you to just offer yourself some gratitude and acknowledgement for being in this space, for trying these practices, for being a tender of the earth, and for doing this work of acknowledging the way that the earth is changing, for doing this work of tending to loss and change and grief. It isn't easy work. I just offer a lot of gratitude to you all for being here in this space and on this planet. When you feel ready, I invite you to come back into the space. Thank you all so much for having me. It's been truly an honor, and I'm very grateful to be in connection with you all through this space. And I'll pass it back to Anita and Sarah. Oh, yes. Also, I forgot about these slides. If anyone would like continued support around climate grief or any other forms of loss, death, and change, I host a grief processing space where we process grief through writing every other Tuesday. The next one is tomorrow evening. I will drop the link to the Google form in the chat. This is a flyer for the space. And then if anyone wants to stay in contact, this is my email address and my website. I work with groups and organizations around climate grief and all forms of grief and change. And also I'm a writer, and this is a big part of my writing. So those are ways to continue to connect. Thank you again. And now I will pass it back to Sarah and Anita.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mai, for all of that, for guiding us through climate grief today and giving us so much to consider. So I also want to thank our Spanish interpretation team, Bruje and Jeanette, for all of your support and help today. And thank you all so much for coming. We're so grateful to be able to gather like this at Free School, and we really deeply appreciate your participation. We have a short evaluation that Sarah's going to put in the chat. Please take a moment to complete it if you can. It really helps us to build Free School to be just the best it can be. And lastly, we wanted to share some upcoming fall sessions with you all. Stay tuned for registration details. But in late October, we'll have a session on farm management for farm workers, and it's going to be focused on delegation skills and led by seasoned farm managers. And in November, Dee and Maggie from Rocksteady Farm are going to be joining us to talk about their journey with cooperative farming. And I think that's everything. So thank you all so much, and please have a great night.